Okay. All right, let's get started as people continue to join. Um, thank you all for joining us for our last Afar Live of the year. I mean, this is the time of year when travel media unveil their big where to go lists. And of course, this year is different. And I'll let Julia talk more about that and how Afar came up with our list. I did want to say, it's been proven time and again that planning a trip gives us the same mental health boost as travel. It's free. So I think we should take advantage of that and talk about where we want to go, dreaming about travel because it will come back. And I think especially now we're able to look forward to the future even more in a way that we haven't in the last few months. So thank you for joining today. And thank you for joining this year. We started these in March and it's been such a highlight for me and us to connect to so many of you. So with that, I'll introduce you to, all of you probably know her already, but our Vice President and Editor-in-Chief of Afar Media, Julia Cosgrove.
Thanks, Annie, and thanks to you for leading these illuminating conversations for the last 10 months. I still remember so vividly having a somewhat broken up cell phone conversation as I was speeding up the 101 in California, coming from a Visit California event, and you suggested we should do some kind of virtual meeting. And my gosh, here we are. Virtual meetings mean so much more, right? After the last 10 months, but such an important time to connect with people in our business from all over the world. And it's a real privilege to be here today with you all as we finally draw to the close of 2020. I'm going to talk for just a little while about the issue and some initiatives that Afar have undertaken in the last few months of the year. So last week, copies of our latest print issues started arriving in mailboxes, and I definitely felt a swell of pride as I flipped through the pages once my copy arrived, just sort of seeing and reading through the incredible work that our team has produced during this unrelenting and really trying year. I also felt a twinge for the first time of optimism for the future. Though the news is terrible right now in terms of the COVID-19 surge, there is hope on the horizon. And I said in a meeting yesterday, the cavalry is coming. And in some places, they've already arrived. Vaccines have started to arrive in the UK and are expected to arrive in the US in the coming weeks. And there's no doubt in my mind that while this will be a hard winter, I do think that after you've Zoomed all day long, as I'm sure so many of you do, and you've doom scrolled late into the night, what better way to improve your mood than dreaming about and starting to plan your next trip? So at Afar, we've used this year to really double down on our mission of travel as a force for good. And in our latest issue, you'll read The Traveler's Manifesto by author Eric Weiner, which outlines a new credo, really, for how to be a better traveler. My spoiler alerts are purpose, connection, sustainability, and empathy matter more than ever as we march forward into 2021 and beyond. And also, I think we can all appreciate the importance of slowing down after this intense year of slowing down, perhaps a little too much. But I would say sort of what's your hurry when we do get back out on the road, spend more time in a place and, make more of an explicit effort to talk to people, to get to know people in a place. This issue also explores where we'll go when we can and how to be responsible travelers when we get there. Our senior editor, Aislinn Green, who oversaw the package, coined the term, I think she coined the term, I didn't, Quarren Dreams. And we can't wait to make the make those dreams a reality. The issue is full of thoughtful inspiration, and a diverse group of Afar writers, including Heather Greenwood Davis, who you'll hear from next, shared where they'll go when they can in our annual Where to Go package, bringing to life ways to reconnect with the world once again in such destinations as Ghana, Vietnam, Uzbekistan, New Orleans, and even on a cycling trail that winds through most of Europe. As we reimagine travel, which is a section in the issue, the comedian Negin Farsad turns global citizen into an adjective to explore what it means to be well-traveled today. Contributing writer Peggy Orenstein journeyed to China's Yunnan province. This was before the pandemic hit. With the help of the experts at Wild China, and she wrote a really beautiful feature story for us. She visited farming villages, monasteries, and there are some very evocative scenes that she lays forth. Contributing writer Lisa Abend explores Tuscany and meets the small business owners fighting to keep the art of bookmaking alive. It really takes you back into this perfect kind of blend of past and present, and what how modern forces are sort of making these business owners change their business models. And I wrote a love letter to my original hometown, New York City. In our feature well, we deliberately chose to focus on destinations that were hard hit in the early days of the pandemic, because they will need our tourism dollars as they start to open up to travelers again. The pandemic revealed a world without travel. We learned what we took for granted, what we missed the most, what we long to see again. And it's certainly my hope that that perspective sticks with us for some time, and perhaps even changes us permanently to really sort of value these things that matter most. As we head into 2021, we know that consumers are increasingly looking for companies to act with purpose and to be leaders in issues that matter to them, which comes naturally to us. Afar's brand voice isn't preachy or earnest, because we know that at its core, travel is also about delight, wonder, and joy. Travel is also about making individuals more aware of their place in the world and making the world more connected. I think we've all missed, I certainly have missed, that real world connection during this year of virtual meetings and endless screen time for ourselves, for our kids, for the world. At Afar, we've always believed that travel can be a powerful force for good in the world. And some of the questions I've been thinking a lot about are, how do we better care for our planet coming out of this time? How do we better care for each other? And how do we better care for ourselves? For Afar, that means advocating for a more sustainable future for the travel industry, uplifting local communities through real, authentic economic empowerment, and celebrating gender, racial, and ethnic diversity every step of the way. I'm shockingly, if you know me, excited for the year ahead, and I hope that you can find a sliver or a pound or a ton of optimism too. As the Nobel Prize-winning activist Desmond Tutu said, hope is being able to see there is light despite all the darkness. So here is to a brighter 2021. I'm in California, but if I could, I would lift a mimosa to all of you. And I think that's all I have. So I'm going to pass the mic back over to Annie. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. I'm very glad we're recording this, because I'm going to listen to that again. And you always make me tear up with your leadership and inspiration, and a hope for a better year ahead. So thank you very much.
Thank
Yes.
you.
And next we have Heather Greenwood Davis here, who I don't see her face yet, but thank you, Julia. We'll see you later. Heather, are you there? Hi.
I am.
You are.
We did it.
We did it. Oh, so good to see your face. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. I'm good.
Good, good. Well, let me introduce you before we get started on our talk. But we actually worked together at National Geographic for a few years, and you're still there. So you're a contributing writer and on-air personality with National Geographic. You're the founder and writer of Globetrotting Mama, which I love. On the advisory board for the Family Travel Association, and you took a trip around the world. Is that right? 10 years ago, when your boys were 8 and 6?
That's right. That's
yeah?
Right. Yeah.
And now they're 18 and 16?
Correct.
which is crazy. And I'm of course the mother of a 2-year-old. So I'm really watching what you're doing now and what you've done and take so much from that as well. So thank you for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great to chat with you and great to see you.
Yes. So of course, one of the reasons we wanted to have you on was that you did contribute a story to our January issue about Ghana. So I wanted to ask you, can you give a quick overview of what that trip was about? It was many years ago, but it's a really powerful story, I think.
Yeah, it was many, many, many years ago. It actually happened in 1997. The short version is that I was a cub reporter at the Toronto Star at the time, and I managed to convince people that I should be the one that accompanied a group of Black students from the city on their first trip to the continent. So my job really was to report on their experience and tell their story about what it was like to go to Africa for the first time and sort of find that connection. And that was a really easy story to write in a lot of ways because it happened, absolutely. But what I didn't count on was that I too, I don't know why I didn't count on this, but that I too would feel a connection when I got there on my first trip to the continent. And so although I did end up writing a small piece for the paper about figuring that out when I got back, the story I've written for Afar talks about the fact that there was a woman who approached me while I was there and said, I can take you to your people, which is something she'd said to many people in our group. And really what she was saying is, you look like a group of people I know, and I can introduce you. And the people, people should read the story, but I didn't take her up on that offer. And so the story delves a little bit into why I think that was and why I wish I had.
Awesome. And I do think it's up on our website now too. So
Yeah,
you can link it into the comments as well. But so I've of course known you and followed your work for years, but what does it mean to you to travel as a journalist? Because you have a kind of, I think, a unique, different perspective than all like the influencer culture that's out there now.
Yeah. I don't know how different it is, but I definitely feel like, especially now, I feel like what an incredible privilege and what a responsibility that comes with being a travel journalist. At its heart, I've always really believed that it's about connections. So I've always wanted the people who travel with me through my writing, through social media, I want them to understand how small the world is. I want them to understand that we impact each other, even the people that seem so far away and in this, different country, different continent, how alike we are in so many ways and how our differences are so incredibly interesting. And that they offer us opportunities for learning and for improvement. And we have this opportunity to influence people. So I hope that people get that through my writing. I think I write a very typical, I don't do the typical travel destination review stories. I tend to write stories that are about transformational travel experiences, unique moments. I try to make them interesting and relatable. I hope they're funny. I think they're funny. That year around the world in particular, that for me was about traveling to unknown places, and being able to take sort of social media along with me was a big deal for me and really influenced the way that I was able to tell stories. So that was important to me too.
Yeah, I love that. You said you were in these unknown places, but you had the support of people from all over the world, really, right? At home and from all over the world. So you didn't feel alone on that trip.
No, and it actually felt like, sometimes you're traveling, I'm sure you've experienced this, where sometimes you're traveling and something seems so different and foreign and uncomfortable to you in a place, and no one around you in that place feels that. But I think social media does a great job of allowing you to travel with people from home who understand your discomfort and then work through that discomfort with you, through your travels. So I think that's really unique too about travel writing.
Yeah, that happened. Actually, I went to Riga, Latvia several years ago with National Geographic, and I don't know why I was so nervous to go to Latvia. I mean, I got there and it was just so somehow unknown, and I had been so many places. It was the same thing. Like all of a sudden, I started meeting people on social media, and I ended up meeting some of them in person. And I think, there is still that connection that we can find from that. And especially now, I mean, social media has given me a lifeline, probably like you, right? To the world.
For sure. And all those people we've met in all those places right now, it's an opportunity to sort of tune into their lives through social media in a way that we couldn't in any other way right now. So
exactly. A lot of time to scroll our phones. So anyways, so you also talked about how, this year being home is kind of like your year away. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so this year, what happened on our year away was I'm married, as you know, and I had these two young boys, and we sort of ditched everything, took off for this year, and depended entirely on each other. We walked into new situations together. You know, we were experiencing new things together. When we got sick of each other, it was too bad because we were all we had, you know. And so that was really interesting to me. And then when the pandemic started, I started to get this deja vu feeling of, you know, all of us together in one space, and, you know, all we had was each other for entertainment value, you know, that kind of stuff. And even though they're older, it really did take me back to that. And in some ways, listen, I recognize that the pandemic has been very difficult for a lot of people. And as, you know, people have lost loved ones. It's been a really tough time. But I think if we're going to find a silver lining here, it's got to be that we have more time with each other, at least with the ones in our home. Sometimes we get lucky and things open up a little and we get, you know, a little bit more than that. And for me, that really reminded me of how lucky I felt to spend that time with them while we were traveling. And what that did for us was it built this incredible bond, which has lasted all these years and has it's only gotten better. And I'm wishing that for everybody who's going through this now, that if nothing else, they come out of this with feeling a little closer to the people that they've been able to be close to.
Yeah, I love that. I really do. And I think also, I mean, we talked about too, I mean, how lucky we are and you were to travel around the world. Like, we know that not everyone can do that, but
Yeah.
if you can, right? If you can just travel even in your own backyard. And I think a lot of us have been discovering that as well, right? Not just.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we're in Ontario. I'm in Canada. I don't know if we mentioned that, but we're in Ontario, and you know, we went through a lockdown time when we were asked not to leave our homes or just to go for a walk in the neighborhood, and we did that when we could. But when they opened up a bit this summer, and they were like, you know, okay, you can go around the province, be careful, do things carefully. We were out of here, and we managed to get to like places that are not far from my home, but that I always sort of kept in my back pocket as, yeah, one day, you know, I'll do that. Now suddenly I had a new respect and value for those things. And I really had an amazing opportunities and trips this summer that started off sometimes with us just in our car, only going so far and coming back. And other times we were in RVs, Prince Edward County, Manitoulin Island, Kingston, Ontario, Chatham, just some incredible destinations that people around the world come to throughout the year. But yeah, this has been the time that we've been able to discover it.
That's awesome. And is there anywhere else in Ontario that you want to go now that you've sort of discovered it?
I want to go back to all of those places. And yeah, I mean, you know, Ottawa, I went to school in Ottawa. I still have a real love for that space. My oldest just started university there, although he's doing it from my basement at the moment. You know, and I'm learning to embrace winter this year, you know, fingers crossed. So I think Ottawa might see me again. Yeah, but really, I just want to explore. The road trip really appeals to me. So all of that is exciting.
Do you have a favorite road trip snack?
Ooh. What do I usually have in there? Probably wouldn't be a good idea to share it.
M&Ms or something.
Yeah, yeah, listen, all of that. I realized actually that travel and junk food go hand in hand for me.
Yes.
So it's been interesting. Like, when was the last time I had a Twizzlers, right? Like,
yeah, it's okay because we're on a road trip. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, so I'm really excited to talk to you about family travel. 'Cause of course, as I said, I have a 2-year-old and I so admire what you've done and how your kids have grown up. And you mentioned something to me, not bragging, but I just grabbed onto it, which is that you barely had any trouble at all with them. And you attribute a lot of that to traveling. Why do you?
Yeah, you know, I know it does sound like bragging, but and I always say, like, these are the only kids I have. I have no test kids somewhere who never traveled with me, who I can say, yeah, look how horrible those two are. But I do think what happened with my boys was that we took them out at an age when they were just about to value friends more than family. And so when we were on the road with them, they were still very much into us as their world, you know? And I think on the road with us, they had this opportunity to really be their full selves. There was no concern about what other kids might think or whether they were doing it right. Was it cool enough? We sort of missed that a little bit. And they spent this time on the year that we spent on the road, they spent it developing themselves, you know, not intentionally, but
Yeah.
it just happened through these experiences, as it does. Like I really do believe in the power of travel to do that, that just the fact that just the fact that you're taken out of your neighborhood
Yeah.
and taken into the world at large, and you suddenly can look back at your neighborhood and realize, hey, you know, it's just this small piece of the planet. And so while the people in that area may have some effect on my life, there's so much more that can have an impact, and that I can have an impact on. And my kids, I really saw that in them. They grew into these young men who, you know, think of things from a global perspective, and, you know, are trying to make an impact in that way. And I'm really, really proud of them. We could do an hour just on how proud I am of them.
I know, it's a good one. I know, actually, I mean, I think everyone should follow your sons too. I mean, or at least through you on because they're doing things.
Yeah.
Were you ever scared to bring them anywhere?
Initially. So I would say we did a trip to Peru when so my youngest was 5, and it was meant to be sort of this test trip with them. And I was the parent on that trip who like packed Rice Krispies and boxes of Kraft dinner, you know, all of that kind of stuff. I think you guys say KD, or Americans say KD, I think.
Yeah.
We packed all that stuff because I was so afraid, like, what am I going to feed them on the road? And what if I don't have their favorite thing on the road? And that was the year that sort of taught me that they really didn't need it, you know, like that they were going to figure this thing out as we went, if we allowed them the space to do it. I remember when we were setting out on the year away, I sat them down and said, one was a really picky eater. And I sat him down and said, look, like if I can find Kraft dinner on the road, it is yours. But if we end up someplace and it's not there, you got to promise me you're going to eat something. And he did. He's now our most adventurous eater. So yeah, it was tough at first, and I was scared. I was never scared for their safety, to be honest with you. In every space that we went, people rose up and showed us how kind they are and how good they can be. And if anything, my travels have really reinforced my belief that the world is a good place.
Oh, I really, that's awesome. Did you let them watch TV on airplanes?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out what to do with my daughter now, because she's very into Peppa Pig. Like 18 minutes a day maximum, but I was going to ask your advice on that, on screen time.
I mean, we always made sure, especially that year, we tried to make sure they always had something to do that we thought was great. So they read a lot of books. We always had books. We picked up books in different countries and left them behind and that sort of thing. You know, they did Khan Academy. They were a little older, right? So they did Khan Academy sometimes if we had some downtime. But the thing about traveling for a year or two, which is different, I think, than you know, just traveling for a weekend or something, or even a week, is that you can't be a tourist that entire time, right? We quickly realized you have to build in some time when, you know, yes, you can watch TV because mom needs a break, you know? And my husband and I also quickly realized that like we needed a break from each other, and the kids needed a break from both of us. And, you know, so we'd spread it all out. So yeah, I'm all for it. Yeah. Give her the pep.
Yeah.
Pig, man. Like,
yeah. Well, especially, I mean, you're also out all day doing things, right? I mean, everyone needs a break.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, I think this just reminds me, I really think, of course, we didn't travel with her this year really, but I think it makes their childhood feel longer when you travel with them, because the memories somehow are bigger than the other memories, right? So I feel like every trip taken with her has made it, I don't know, a week away has felt like 3 weeks or something. I mean, have you found that too? And have these memories, they're really in your family lore now, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. What, you know, when we were setting out, especially on the big trip, when we were setting out, people were like, why are you taking them now? Like, they're not going to remember any of this. I don't know why you would waste this money or what have you. And I was like, what about me? Like, I matter. I want to experience it with them. You know, it's not just about the kids. I want to have these experiences that I can remember, that I shared with them. And what surprised me the most of this is that how much they did remember. They do not remember everything, but neither do I. And what they're able to do is fill in the blanks of the things of our memories, or fill in perspectives to certain parts of the trip that I just didn't have, because I was looking at it as an adult, as someone who was organizing things, who was making sure people were safe, whereas they were just taking in the moment, you know? And what's great is they've been able to sort of fill in each other's memories and fill in our memories and vice versa. So yeah, I wouldn't let that fear of, you know, they're too little to remember, be the driving decision. You know, we've built family history and family lore, as you say, you know, through these trips. And yeah, I wouldn't change any of it.
Well, and that just, when you said that, that just hit me like, you know, I'm there too. Like, it doesn't matter if they don't remember. And like you said, you're not going to remember it all either. It's just kind of becomes part of who you are, right?
Yeah, like we took so many photos, right? So we're constantly looking back at the pictures. And I don't know about your own childhood, but I have aunts and uncles who will tell stories about things I did as a baby that I swear I can remember now, and that I know there's no way I have a memory of, you know? So, I mean, that's part of it is just, and it's not just what they remember, it's how did this trip impact them? How did that time together as a family impact them? And that's not going to be, you know, measured in how much they remember of the day at the park, you know. That's measured in how they felt and how they carry that forward in regular life when you're not, you know, doing these exciting traveling things.
Yes. I mean, even in London, like I remember I went to Fortnum and Mason with my daughter over the weekend, and I had taken her there 10 months ago. And so I have all these mememories of her there as a baby. And now I have memories with her there as a 2-year-old, right? And when I go back, she'll be 4 and I'll cry because, you know, sort of, they become part of the city too, that you live in, these memories.
Yeah. And I know, like, you guys travel a lot when we could travel a lot. And it's the same thing, right? It's like the practice of being on the plane all the time, or things just feel familiar. So the act of being out in the world and seeing lots of different people and having lots of different experiences, you know, you're building up, that's cumulative. You're building that up as you go. And their confidence in the world comes from that. The confidence is what I've seen in my kids more than anything. Amazing. You know, they're very comfortable in who they are, and they carry that forward.
It's a gift too from that. And are either of them picky eaters?
No, sadly. My grocery bill would appreciate if they could be slightly pickier. Craft dinner was a lot less expensive than the steak they're asking for these days. No, neither of them are picky. My youngest was shy. He's now an activist in his own right. He's designed his own clothing that he's selling. Like it's just unbelievable. He was on TV. He's giving speeches. Wow. They came into their own. You know, they just had the space to do that. And I think, you know, most kids are sort of working from bell to bell at school. You know, like get up, sit down, eat lunch, go. And just taking them out, I can't imagine like the families that take them out, you know, for longer than that or more than once or what have you. I can imagine what the impact must be on them because this was a year.
Well, so let's talk. I mean, I asked you where you think people should go next year and you were like, farther.
Isn't that what we all want?
Farther. But, you know, based on kind of your past trips, places that you've been, can you talk about some of your favorite trips and where we should be thinking about?
Okay, so I would be called out if I didn't call out Portugal, because Portugal is my all-time number one place to get to. It actually was my last trip right before, you know, all trips came to an end. I was in Porto, I think in February, and absolutely fell in love. It was my first time there. But we actually went to Lisbon on the trip on the year away. And it was only meant to be a couple of days, and they had to pull me kicking and screaming out of that country. Like, I just fell in love with Portugal. So it's my forever place, I think, one day. So I think everyone should see it, but leave some space for me to buy property, please. And, but also Greece. I've only seen Greece from a cruise ship. I'd love to get there and see the islands and that sort of thing. And Rwanda, I've been now twice, I think. And, you know, talk about a place that, it's just everything, the people, the fashion, the food, the landscapes, the history, the art. You know, I think people think Rwanda, and if they're thinking of travel, think of the gorillas. And yes, they're there and they're amazing, but there's so much more to that country, and really, really worth seeing.
That's awesome. Madeira was the last place I was, so that's funny. We were both in Portugal as the last trips. I didn't know that.
I haven't been to Madeira. I get excited every time I think of all the places in Portugal I still have to see. And of course, people have to come to Canada, right? Once it opens up and you can, because we have a world of experiences within our borders too, north to south, east to west, something for everyone for sure.
Yes, I really, really want to do more of Canada. And I really want to do that train trip, the Rocky Mountaineer. That's like
Yeah, I've done that. That's a
You
good one.
did?
Yeah.
Did you sleep, like, did you have your own little, like bunk beds, or how did it?
Now I think I must have done only a portion of it, like as a tester, what have you, but I would do it again. And I think they just expanded it, I think, into the States. So there's another option for doing a similar journey, but the glass domed car as you're going through like the wilds and what have you, absolutely worth doing.
That's awesome. I really want to do that. So I did also want to ask you, as a travel journalist and working in travel, what are your dreams, I guess, for who and what you want to be in the next 5 years? Like, is there something, do you want to write a book? Do you want to do a podcast? Do you want to do you have?
Yeah. You know, this career has been so good to me because it's really allowed me to sort of not make any concrete decisions about what my career is going to look like, and things just happen and move forward. So, I mean, I started off as a strictly print journalist. I did journalism school, and you decide, are you going to do print? Are you going to do radio? Are you going to do TV? That's how old I am. And I was like, print, 100% print. And, now I do TV, and I'm on podcasts, and I do radio, and all of it is, no one is more surprised than me or the people I went to high school with. I guarantee you. Yeah, I think I'm just open to whatever may come. I definitely would like to write a book.
Yeah.
It's sort of the one thing I've yet to really accomplish that I think is still sort of in the back of my mind to get done, but I'm happy to take it as it comes.
Yeah. Well, I think you probably do have the coolest job of anyone you went to high school with. So
I'm going with that because I did not have the coolest high school experience. So let's say that I was a late bloomer.
That's funny. And something, I mean, just also the National Geographic name too. I mean, I found when I would always say that it opened the door, but you had to walk through it. Do you think that's the case too? Like whenever you travel, like that, of course, people know it all around the world, but you still have to make those experiences yourself.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm so proud of being associated with them. I love the experiences we've had. And I came to National Geographic because I was following what I wanted to do, right? That I did that trip that year away. That was just us. Like National Geographic didn't know who I was yet. Yeah. And when they named us Traveler of the Year in 2012, and then really, and it was Keith Bellows who really opened the door and introduced me to, Leslie and some other great people there, and George, of course. And that sort of has led to me on the path that I'm on now, which has been fantastic. Yeah. But yeah, as I'm traveling, people are always excited to hear that name.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I'm hoping to meet people who aren't really there for that, like I try to meet people who are just local and doing their own thing and sort of climb into their world a little bit.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, of course, no matter, anytime I mention that, people are very, very excited and very impressed. A good thing.
Yeah. Well, I'm very happy that, that you joined us today and that you wrote this story for us as well. And, that, I mean, I think it's, the travel industry, I always say too, and I just saw Rami hop on. So if you want to hop on again, Rami, I'm not sure where he went, but I always say to people in the travel industry, like, you don't have to just be one thing, right? You don't have to just be a journalist. You don't have to be a blogger, a writer, an editor. Like, you can be like an octopus and find your different parts of yourself, right?
Yeah, that's all I've ever been.
Yeah. So
finger in every pie.
Yes, I love that. So thank you so much, Heather, for joining us. Rami, I think I don't see your face yet, but very excited to talk to you as well. And
what a pleasure.
Heather, thank you. I will see you in person soon.
Yes, I hope so. Okay, I'm signing off.
Okay, bye. Hi, Rami, coming to us from Cairo. Ah,
Hi, Annie. How are you?
hi, good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank
Yes,
you.
yes. How is it in Cairo?
Oh gosh, it's great. It's great weather. It's sunny. It's beautiful. It's mid 70s today. It was 82. Um, can't complain. It's really no rain at all. I've been walking around a lot. I've been getting some fresh air, and it's great to be able to visit museums. And there's no lockdown here. The country has reopened in October, so I'm
Okay.
really enjoying it.
Oh, well, it's that great dry heat, like where I grew up in Arizona, right? Like your hair always looks
Yes, it is. Yes, it is indeed.
nice. Well, let me do just a quick introduction. So Rami Girgis is the Director of Private Jet and Special Interest Travel at Abercrombie and Kent. But he's also a certified Egyptologist. So he's a huge Egypt expert based in Chicago, but you're in Cairo now visiting family. And you plan these around the world journeys and these private jet trips. And yeah, but you of course have not forgotten Egypt, and you work a lot on the Egypt trips as well, right?
Yes, definitely. It's in my heart, and every year I come here at least once, sometimes twice.
Yeah. Well, and I thought I really wanted to delve into Egypt with
Hmm.
you, because whenever people ask what my favorite trip of all time was, I always say Egypt. And I went with A and K, and I can't get over how amazing it was. And I think that next year, whenever we can get there, maybe the year after, but I think that it's going to be the place to go, especially because the crowds are just lighter than they ever have been, and to support the country, of course, that is based so much on tourism. So um, and there's a lot happening. There's a lot of news as well in Egypt. So, and it's
Hmm.
also, I've been talking to a lot of travel advisors and travel experts, and bookings are up for Egypt. People want to go to Egypt, right? It is that trip of a lifetime. So that's yeah. Anyways, so can you tell me why you think Egypt will forever be this incredible destination first?
Oh, well, thank you so much. Yes, you're absolutely right. It is one of those incredible destinations. Egypt has a history of 5,000 years. Um, to put that in perspective, when Cleopatra took Julius Caesar on a leisurely cruise on the Nile, it was to showcase Egypt's beauty, but also the ancient monuments. At the time of Cleopatra, the pyramids were 2,000 years old. So, you've got here pyramids, temples, tombs, mummies, just all the ingredients of an incredible destination. And, we're so blessed. We have um, things that appeal to different people. You've got family-friendly activities. You have something for those who are looking for something active, water-based activities and pristine corals, great for diving and snorkeling on the Red Sea, in the Red Sea in Sharm el Sheikh. So it has so much to offer.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, that actually really does put it in perspective, the time. I mean, you know that the pyramids are old, but that's really old.
Exactly.
Um, so, and let's briefly touch on, why should someone come in 2021? Is it open to everyone, and what are the requirements for entry right now?
Sure. I think you touched on that earlier, which is the lack of crowds. For 2021, I don't expect to have as many people, not nearly as many people as we had in 2020, early 2020 and in 2019. And again, in perspective, um, we're in a high season now. High season is between October and April. And there would usually be somewhere between 200 to 300 boats going up and down the Nile.
Wow.
And right now, there are only a handful of ships. So, guests who are comfortable traveling now are in for a treat. The sites are going to be almost entirely to themselves.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, they reopened in October, and it's been gradual. And I was pleasantly surprised to see the safety measures they have in place, with operations 50% capacity for cruise ships and hotels. Airlines are flying in. I flew in very easily. When you arrive, you need to present a negative COVID PCR certificate that's been administered 96 hours prior to departure if you're flying from the US and Canada, and 72 hours if you're flying in from Europe.
Hmm.
a proof of health insurance, and a visa. And the visa is very easy to obtain. It's an e-visa online, and the fee is very nominal, only $25.
Okay, so it is open to Americans, and that's
It is indeed open to Americans. It opened back in October. We've had a few guests visit traveling with Abercrombie and Kent, and they had a great time.
nice, nice. Well, and there are, I mean, one of my favorite museums I've ever been to was the Egyptian Museum. And I was just laughing because when I was going through, like everything was in these like high school trophy cases, right? Like this like 3,000-year-old hair or this, I mean, just, you couldn't believe it. I mean, it's this incredible stuff, but the way that it was displayed was maybe not the best way, right? And so they opened a new museum. Can you talk about that?
Sure. Well, the new museum is going to be right next to the pyramids area. It's called the Grand Egyptian Museum. It's a sight to behold. Fantastic. I couldn't be more proud as an Egyptian to see our history, our heritage displayed that way. I hope I really hope I can be here for the opening. I hope, I don't know if I will. It's scheduled to open in the fall of next year. So we don't have a specific date yet. I know they've been moving pieces out of the current museum into the Grand Egyptian Museum. But the current museum is great to visit.
Yes. Well,
Go
and will
ahead.
King Tut be moved to the new one?
Yes, yes. All of King Tutankhamun's treasures will be moved. A lot of them, many of them were moved to the new museum. They left the mask, and every time they move a piece out of the current Egyptian Museum in Tahrir Square to the new museum, they bring something out of storage in place. But if you go to the Egyptian Museum now, which is to date, it is has the largest collection of ancient Egyptian artifacts in this museum. But the new museum will obviously have much more. But for now, the museum in Tahrir Square is open, and the mask of Tutankhamun is still there.
Still there. And is that the most famous? I mean, I remember seeing the display, but is that the most famous King Tut piece? And why is that?
The mask is the most important, the most famous piece, and it's because it's made out of solid gold.
Okay.
And that it's not wood covered with a leaf of gold or gilded wood. It's a complete solid gold, and the craftsmanship that went into creating this mask is incredible. I mean, it's just impeccable when you look at it. I have many friends who studied art and who work in the field, and they tell me that they can't find a single mistake. There are mistakes that the ancient Egyptian artisans made, and you can see them, not in the mask though.
Wow. I mean, of course, masks are a big thing this year. So also.
Definitely. And, and this one is prettier, and it's, like I said, it's impeccable. It's in great condition too.
Yeah. Well, and what else, what other King Tut, if you could like pick one more object that you love from that exhibit, which one would you pick?
The throne.
The throne.
The throne of Tutankhamun is also an impeccable piece. It just showcases the ingenuity of the ancient Egyptians and how developed they were in the art. I mean, these people 3,000 years ago were great artisans. They showed us how things are done, and they set the stage for how art is today.
Amazing. And how much time do you usually recommend for people to see that museum?
The museum, at a minimum of 2 hours in the current Egyptian Museum. There are thousands of pieces there, and 2 hours you're seeing the must-sees, the most iconic pieces of the museum. 2 hours, and give yourself some time to take pictures too.
Yeah. Well, and I had one more question. Well, King Tut was how old when he died? Was he he was 18 or?
18. That's indeed. He was 18 years old when he died. He died very young, and that's another mystery is the mystery of his death. And I know they've been conducting a lot of research on how he died so early, and the reasons vary. And his tomb, everyone thinks of his tomb as this incredible, and it is an incredible tomb, but actually it was unfinished because he died so young. So they rushed to bury him. When the king, as soon as the pharaoh is put on the throne, he starts immediately working on his tomb. So you've got the kings who died later in life, and these people had plenty of time to prepare their tomb. And because Tutankhamun died so young, the tomb was not finished. So there are chambers that are not decorated in the tomb.
Wow. Wow. Well, and how do they think he died? What is the most, like, if you had to pick one theory?
Malaria.
Malaria. Okay. Oh, that's easy enough.
Yes.
So you obviously, King Tut is not a hidden gem in Egypt, but you kind of specialize in finding these hidden gems. What are some in Egypt once you've done that Nile cruise that you would recommend?
Sure. I recommend, if you've done the Nile cruise and seen those must-see sites in Cairo, I recommend going out to the desert. You can take a road trip from Cairo going into the Western Desert. You first pass by the Black Desert, and it's all black. It was formed by volcanic eruptions. So it's beautiful, and something really unique. From there, you continue on to the White Desert. The White Desert was it was a seabed, and what's left are calcified limestone rocks. There are these fantasy-like mushroom-shaped rocks. So you go, it's a photographer's dream. You go spend some time there, camp for the night, and the next day you drive a short distance to the Bahariya Oasis. The Bahariya Oasis is very famous these days because next to the Bahariya Oasis there's a valley. We now call it the Valley of the Golden Mummies, because over 200 mummies were discovered that had a leaf of gold. They date back to the Greco-Roman time.
Wow.
And some of those mummies were put in a museum in the Bahariya Oasis. So you go see, it's called the Bawiti Museum. So you go see the golden mummies. So you've seen the Black Desert, the White Desert, the golden mummies, and back to Cairo.
Wow.
So that's one. Another one is it's in the Western Desert. If you drive between Cairo and Alexandria, it's closer to Cairo, and it's called Wadi al-Natrun, or the Valley of Natron. It's named Natron because of the natron salt that was extracted from the area, and it was used by the ancient Egyptians to dehydrate bodies for mummification.
Oh, wow.
So that's why it's called the Valley of Natron, or Wadi al-Natrun. But we don't go there for mummies. We go there for monasteries. There are ancient Christian monasteries. They date back to the 4th century. In fact, Christian monasticism started in Egypt when monks or ordinary people wanted to go seek seclusion in the desert away from daily life. And that's where monasticism started. And it was formed. It was, the order was put for monastic life. In this area, there were hundreds of monasteries and thousands of monks. Right now, there are 4 monasteries. Like I said, they date back to the 4th century AD. And I highly, highly recommend this place.
Wow. Well, I didn't know about either of those trips. And I did have 2 questions just to follow up. The Valley of the Golden Mummies, is the gold still there, or was that stolen, or is that that was found on
the mummies were discovered, and some of the mummies had gold on them, and others had coffins that were covered with a leaf of gold. Yes, it does. You can see the gold right there.
Wow. Okay.
And it's something really unique. You won't see that anywhere else in Egypt.
Wow. And you also mentioned on that particular trip camping, which is not, I camped once in Jordan, but it's not like my favorite way. Is it glamping or is it camping?
It's camping. It's a really good question. It is camping. The camping industry in Egypt is in its infancy. So expect it's going to be a mobile camp that's set up right before you go, and it's dismantled right after you leave. So it's not as luxurious as, let's say, if you're familiar with our safari camps in East Africa. But there you would go spend 2-3 nights. In the White Desert, we only spend 1 night. It's still very comfortable. It's very clean. You're going to have a bathroom set up for you, and fresh food and all of that. But it is basic.
Yeah. Well, I think that's fine. I mean, as long as, there's camping like in a tent that you set up yourself, and then there's one that's set up for you and you have a bathroom, and that's not bad at all. So
Right, and the experience is so worth it.
Yeah, definitely. You can see places that you wouldn't. Well, that kind of leads to my next question, which is about hotels, which, you know, in Cairo, of course, there's the Four Seasons, there's Mina House. Is that how you say
Right.
it? Yeah.
Mina House. Yes.
Which I love. It overlooks the pyramid, and they actually shape their rice in the form of a pyramid when you eat there, which I love. So, you know, what are some of your other favorite hotels in Egypt?
We're very lucky here that we have great infrastructure for tourism. There are good hotels that cater to different price points and different clientele. My other favorite hotels, besides those you mentioned in Cairo, there is a hotel in Aswan. It really is a hidden gem. It's called the Sofitel Old Cataract Hotel.
Yeah.
It really is. It's a heritage building. That's where Agatha Christie stayed when she wrote Death on the Nile.
So cool.
It really is. It's a charming building, and it's a prime spot on the Nile. So you can stay at that on this side of the hotel, but the hotel also has another side of it. It's a contemporary new building with rooms that overlook the Nile. Each room has a beautiful balcony, and from there you have the very best view, in my opinion, ever. You from the balcony, to your left, the west bank of the Nile, and in the distance, you see those tombs of the nobles. In front of you, the Nile with the cataracts and the island of Elephantine. And to your right is the east bank with feluccas going up the Nile, just sitting there, watching the sunset with a glass of wine or sipping a beer. It's just magical. It really, really is.
Wow.
A picture doesn't do it justice.
Yeah, well, and is that where you said you can see? I remember when you fly into Egypt, you can see like just the green of the Nile, and then it's just desert, right? And is this where you're staying at a hotel on the ground? You can kind of see that?
Absolutely, especially in Aswan, and to some degree in Luxor too, because they're smaller cities and you can't see beyond that. But from the balcony of the Cataract Hotel, you definitely understand why the ancient Egyptians lived right on the banks of the Nile, and they left the rest of the country, because you see the Nile, some green, and then just yellow. It's all desert, right to your right and to your left, just desert, mountains and desert. And it just puts it all into perspective.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well,
go
ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to mention my other favorite hotel is in Luxor. It's called the Sofitel Winter Palace Hotel. This hotel is great for those people who are really interested in archaeology, and Luxor is an open-air museum. There's so much to see there. If you stay an overnight in Luxor, either pre or post-cruise, it helps split the sightseeing on 2 days. Just relax, see other museums like the Luxor Museum too, which has royal mummies. The hotel, like I said, is in a prime spot, overlooks the Nile. To your left is the Luxor Temple. Behind it is the Luxor Souk. So it's a perfect location, and you have the views. It's a heritage building, dates back to 1886, boutique property, and like I said, I highly recommend spending the night there.
I think the gardens there, they reminded me of like the Beverly Hills Hotel or something too. I mean, they were just so incredible. And I think most people too don't realize that you should stay in those hotels on either end of the Nile cruise, because they really are worth it. Like they're hotels worth seeing and worth staying in for one night.
Right.
So we just have a few minutes, but I want to ask you a couple more things. One was, what do visitors need to eat when they go to Egypt? What are your recommended dishes?
How much time did you say we have?
Like 4 minutes.
All right, quickly. My favorite, I'll give you two. My favorite is called koshari. Put your carb calculator aside. It's a bowl of rice, macaroni, lentils, chickpeas. You top it with crispy fried onions, some tomato sauce, and a mix of vinegar, salt. It's really good. It's really good.
Amazing. Just that mix of flavors, like vinegar with tomato, all of it. So good.
It is so good. really is good. My second one is a dessert, of course, and it's called Ali, or the Mother Valley. It's as old as time. It's bread pudding with nuts, sugar, pastry, milk, caramelized on top. So it's milky and soft on the inside, slightly crispy on the outside. It's so good.
I did not have that. I need to go back. That's
One reason to come back.
exactly. Well, good. Well, and let's move out of Egypt just a little bit for the last couple minutes and talk about, one of or more of your favorite private jet itineraries that you're working on.
Sure. One of the trips that I really enjoy and I enjoyed putting together, and I was fortunate to have traveled on it. It was actually the last trip I traveled on before the pandemic. It's called Wildlife Safari. It's a private jet trip that travels around the world. It's a 24-day trip, starts in Seattle, and it goes to 7 destinations. Each destination we go to see a unique animal. Unfortunately, many of them endangered. So we start out in Seattle. We go to Japan to see the snow monkeys. From there to Cebu, Philippines, to swim with whale sharks. Onto Borneo for the orangutan. India for the tigers. Madagascar for the lemurs. Rwanda for the gorillas and golden monkeys. And we end in the Masai Mara with the big 5. It's a fairy tale. 24 days, it's called Wildlife Safari, and in every destination, we bring in a wildlife expert in the field, whether it's someone who is into conservation or someone who has made an impact in terms of education and raising awareness about these animals.
Wow, that is incredible. Traveling to each place for the animal. I love that. And when how many departures next year are there, or is it in 2022?
It starts on February 3rd, 2022. It's a 24-day trip.
Wow, so cool. That's a really fun one to work on. So
it definitely is. We put this trip together for 2020 in February of 2020, and it was sold out right before the pandemic hit.
Wow. Well, and how many people is on the trip?
So it goes on a private jet, a Boeing 757. The jet itself could take 200 people, but it's been reconfigured on the inside for only 48 guests. So it has 48 VIP lie flat seats.
Wow, that's awesome. Okay, I know what I'm dreaming of for the future. That's awesome. Well, Rami, thank you so much for taking the time. I love this. I learned a lot, and I want to go to Egypt and all over the world. So thank you. And thank you all for joining us so much for our last Afar Live of the year. And if you need anything, feel free to email me, Annie@afar.com. And yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. And I hope to see you in person, Rami.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.